Hello guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to install the latest version of macOS on your Windows PC. Now this should work from macOS Big Sur, Monterey, Ventura, Sonoma or Sequoia. But for this video we're going to be installing the latest version of macOS, currently macOS Sequoia, on our Windows PC. I'm going to take this guide step by step, so make sure you watch from the beginning to the end. The first thing we're going to do is check if our hardware meets up to the requirements. So I would recommend you go through the Tanya BIOS guide. This should guide you through what CPU or GPU you should use, or what GPU or CPU is compatible. They also cover Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and the rest of them. So make sure to read through the Tanya guide. But if you already have your hardware or you want to install on your current PC, then you can check through from AMD GPUs here and you should see the supported GPUs. For example, in my system I am using RX 470 and if you do a simple search on AMD GPU, let's search for RX 470. You can see that RX 470 is supported. You can see it's verified and it runs from macOS High Sierra. Latest supports Sonoma, but it also runs Sequoia as well. So you can search your GPU here under either AMD GPU or NVIDIA GPU, and then we also have Intel GPUs as well. So you can make your search here. Your CPU shouldn't be much of an issue because it works on almost every single processor, but the GPU is much more important. You can also check for Wi-Fi card, Ethernet and the rest of that, but those could be after the installation. But what's most important is your CPU and your GPU. So make sure you take note of what CPU you're using and the GPU you're using as well. Now here are the requirements. First, we need macOS Sequoia installer file, or whichever version of macOS you want to install, you need the installer file. I'm going to provide these links in the video description for each and every one of the macOS installer file and every other file we are using in this video. Second, we need Balena Etcher. Next, we need Opencore EFI configuration file. We need ProperTree. We need Explorer++. We need Gen SMBIOS. We need Opencore Configurator. We need Minitool Partition Wizard. And we also need a 32 gig flash drive. If you have anything more than that, you should be fine. Now the first thing we're going to do is download each and every one of these files. So let's head to our browser. And the first we're going to search for is Balena Etcher. Click on the link to balena.io and then download Etcher. Download for Windows since we are installing on Windows, and you should start downloading. Next, we are going to download ProperTree. Click on the first link to GitHub. Click on code and then download zip. Next, we are going to download Explorer++. Now click on the link to explorer++.com and we can download the 64 bits of Explorer++. Click on download 64 bits. Next, we are going to download Gen SMBIOS, which is what we are going to use to generate a unique serial for our macOS. Click on the first link to Gen SMBIOS on GitHub. Click on code and then download zip. Next, we are going to download Opencore Configurator. Now search for box Opencore Configurator. Click on the link to box and then you can download Opencore Configurator. Next, we are also going to download Minitool Partition Wizard. Click on the link to Minitool Partition Wizard and then click on download now. And lastly, we have to download our Opencore EFI configuration file. Now our EFI is basically our bootloader, so we need EFI to access our operating system, and we also need the EFI to install the operating system. Now there are three ways you can get an EFI. First, you can download a pre-built EFI, which is an already made EFI, but this may not match exactly with your hardware since it is a pre-built EFI and you may have different peripherals which shouldn't match. The second option is building the EFI from scratch, which is a very good method. This way you can manually build it yourself, taking note of the configurations. Now this is a video I made about a year ago on how to create macOS EFI from scratch. This video is around 35 minutes and I would paste the link in the video description. So if you want to build your EFI from scratch, then make sure to watch this video. And lastly, you can request for a custom EFI. Now, if you request for a custom EFI, we're going to manually build an EFI based on your hardware and send it to you. That way you can just proceed with the installation without any stress. But for this video, we're going to use one of the pre-built EFIs we have here. Now, we have to check the code name of our system so we know the right EFI to download. So if I hold Ctrl+Shift+Escape and open Task Manager, go to Performance. Under CPU, you can see my CPU is Intel Core i7 4790. This means this is a 4th gen processor starting with 4. So make sure to check the code name of your system. 4th gen processors are called Haswell. So I'm going to be downloading EFI configuration for Haswell. So make sure you take note of yours. And you can see right here we have Opencore Desktop EFI, which is for those using desktop computers. And for those using laptop, you can download from this section. So I'm just going to click on Desktop Haswell since this is a 4th gen processor. So let's download. And then click on download. And we have our EFI. Take note, you can build your EFI from scratch. You can use the pre-built EFI, which is what I'm using here, or you can request for a custom EFI on eTechBox. I'm going to provide all these links in the video description. Now, after downloading everything we need, we can close our browser and then open our download folder. So here we go. This is our EFI configuration file. This is Minitool Partition Wizard. This is Opencore Configurator. This is SMBIOS. This is Balena Etcher, this is Explorer++, this is ProperTree, and this is our macOS Sequoia installer file. Now the link to this file, macOS Sequoia installer file, is in the video description, so you can download from there. First, we are going to create a bootable disk with macOS Sequoia and Balena Etcher. So install Balena Etcher by double clicking on it. Now we're going to click on Flash from File, and then select macOS Sequoia installer file right here in our download folder. And then open. Next, click on select target. Now we can connect our flash drive. So you can see our 32 gig flash drive right here. So select it, select, and then flash. Now this is going to take around 30 minutes, but you just have to wait. While this is running, we can work on other things. So let's head back to our download folder. Next, let's extract our EFI configuration file so we can have a look at what's inside. Extract files. So let's delete the extracted folder. Let's also delete Balena Etcher since we've installed it. Now if you open our EFI configuration file, you see another folder EFI inside, which if we open, we see boot and OC. Boot contains the boot file, which is bootx64.efi, and OC contains our configuration files. Now we are going to be working with config.plist, which is our configuration file. Let's head back to our download folder, extract ProperTree. Delete the extracted folder. Let's open ProperTree, open, and then run ProperTree Windows batch file right here. Double click to run. More info, and then run anyway. So this is our ProperTree window. Now click on File, Open, and then locate your download folder. Go to EFI folder, open EFI, go to OC, and select config.plist, which is our configuration file for Opencore. So let's click on Open, and it should load up the settings. So you can see from ACPI to booter to device properties to kernel to mix to NVRAM and the rest of them. Now what we are interested in right now is platform ID, and this is the area where we generate a unique serial for our macOS machine. So under generic, you can see the system product name is iMac Pro 1,1, the system serial number, this is it, and the system UUID. Now if you use the wrong serial or product name, you may not be able to run the installation. So you have to select a serial or product name based on your hardware. So you are not going to be using the same serial or product name with me. Depends on what hardware you're using. I made a very extensive guide on choosing SMBIOS, which I'm going to provide a link in the video description. But for most desktops, the SMBIOS you're going to use is iMac Pro 7,1, and that is for most desktops using a GPU that is supported, just like RX 470. Now let's close this, head back to our download folder, and extract Gen SMBIOS, which we're going to use to create a unique serial for our machine. Now let's delete the zip, open Gen SMBIOS, open, and then run Gen SMBIOS Windows batch file. More info, and then run anyway. First, we are going to install and update Mac Serial. So enter 1 and then hit enter. Hit enter to go back, and we've successfully updated Mac Serial. Next, we are going to select our configuration file by entering 2, hit enter. Now locate your download folder, go to EFI, OC, and from here we can drag our config.plist and then drop it on Gen SMBIOS right here. Hit enter to proceed, and you can see the current plist has been selected, which is our configuration file. Now enter 3 to generate SMBIOS. Now we're going to generate SMBIOS for Mac Pro 7,1. Hit enter, and you can see from the serial number to the board serial, UUID and ROM, everything here has been added to our configuration file. You can see a guide I made on choosing SMBIOS for Opencore Hackintosh. Now if you scroll down, you should see different profiles you can use based on your CPU and your GPU as well. So make sure to go through this so you can find out what SMBIOS to use for your machine. Now let's close this, hit enter to return, and then quit. We are done with using Gen SMBIOS, so we can delete. So there is something else we have to do. We have to map our USB ports. The maximum ports allowed for our macOS Hackintosh is 15, and in some cases you may have more than 15 ports, and some USB ports normally shows as 2 and it uses up all the slots, and you wouldn't be able to access some of your USB ports on macOS. So because of that, we have to map our USB ports manually and disable the ones that we don't need. So let's head to our browser and download. Now let's search for USB Toolbox Kext, and let's also search for USB Toolbox and then open. USB Toolbox Kext is the driver that will allow us to have access to this, and USB Toolbox is the software we're going to use to map our USB. So this is USB Toolbox, link in description as well. Click on the latest release by the right, and then download windows.exe right here. And then for USB Toolbox Kext, we can go to releases as well, and then download the latest release right here. After downloading both, we can close our browser, and in our download folder you can see USB Toolbox Kext and USB Toolbox. So let's run Windows right here, windows.exe, which is our USB Toolbox. Double click to run. First, we are going to discover all our ports by entering D and then hit enter. So just allow it to run for a couple seconds, and it should include all your USB ports. So you can see right here over 21 ports, and like I said, the maximum is 15. So let's hit B to go back since we have loaded all the USB ports. Now hit C to change settings, and then hit C again to disable bind companion. Now we're going to find out why we are doing this later, but let's just do it for now. And then hit B to go back. Enter S to select ports and build Kext. Hit enter, and right here you can see the total number of ports is 21. First, we're going to enter A to select all ports. A, hit enter, and everything is selected. Now if you look closely, you can see USB 2.0, USB 3 type A guest, companion to 18, this other one companion to 19, and the last one companion to 20. So USB 3 ports are recognized as both USB 3 and USB 2. So it is taking up 2 space. So instead, we are going to disable the USB 2 options of every USB 3 port. And that is why we disabled companion mode, so we can be able to do this. So now you can see ports 3, 4, 5, they are companion to 18, 19, 20. And let's look at 18, 19, 20. You can see 18, 19, 20. And you can see they are USB 3 ports, USB 3.0, 3.0, 3.0, companion to 345. And 345 right here, they are USB 2. So we're going to disable the USB 2 options since we have access to USB 3. So to disable 345, you're going to just type in 3, 4, 5 and then hit enter. And we've disabled 345. Now we have 18 ports selected. We are still going to reduce it to 15, under 15. Next, let's look for the next companion, and you can see port 11 right here is USB 2 and its companion to 22, and port 12 is USB 2 companion to 23. Let's check 22, 23. They are all USB 3 ports. So we're going to disable port 11 and 12. 11,12. And now we are at 16. We need to disable just one. So let's look around if we have any other USB 2 ports. And we have right here port 6, which is companion to 21, and that is right here. So we're going to disable port 6. And we are just right at 15. That is what we need. Now you could disable other ones. If you have more than 15, you could disable some other ports that is not really needed, but in my case this is just perfect since I have every port I need selected. Now we can go with K to build our USB map and then hit enter, and you can see we've generated our text. Now we can close this page, go to our folder, and you should see utbmap.kext. Now let's extract USB Toolbox Kext we downloaded. Extract files, open USB Toolbox, and you can see USB Toolbox.kext. Let's copy that, go to download folder again, go to EFI, open OC Kext, and we can paste it here. Also go back to your folder and then copy utbmap.kext as well. Go to EFI OC Kext and then paste it there as well. Now we can delete the files we no longer need, which is utbmap, USB Toolbox. We can delete these since we've already used them. Now after adding this text, we have to update our EFI to apply those changes. So open ProperTree, open ProperTree Windows batch file, click on File, open, and then select config.plist. Now click on File and then OC snapshot, which is going to update our configuration file. Click on select folder. Now we can click on File and save, and then close this. So we are done with ProperTree. We can delete ProperTree. All we have to do is wait for Balena Etcher to finish flashing macOS Sequoia to our flash drive, and then we can move this EFI to the boot partition of our flash drive and begin the installation. So let's just wait. Now click cancel, and then we can close this. Head back to your download folder. Now let's extract Explorer++. Let's install Minitool Partition Wizard. Continue installing the free edition. Next. Next. And then finish. So this is Minitool Partition Wizard. The first thing we are going to do is change the letter of our EFI partition on our flash drive. So if you look right here, you can see disk 1, which is our SSD, and that's where we are currently running Windows, 128 gig. And disk 2 right here is our flash drive with 32 gig. Now you can see the EFI partition on our flash drive with label EFI FAT32. Now right click, and then we can change the letter from none to something else, like let's say X, and then click on OK. Now you also see 12 gig unallocated partition by the right. Let's right click and then create a new simple volume. So click on create, yes, and then let's call this OCC, and then we can click on OK. So what we're basically doing here is changing the letter of our EFI partition to X so we can access it with Explorer++. And secondly, we created a new partition called OCC on our flash drive, which we're going to move Opencore Configurator to. Now we can click on apply, and then yes. And we are done with that. Now there are two ways we can install macOS. We can either install alongside Windows and have the option to boot with either Windows or macOS, or we can just install macOS and get rid of Windows, whichever you prefer. I have just one drive and the size is 128 gig, so I'm just going to install only macOS and get rid of Windows. But if you have enough storage in your drive, you can use maybe a different drive to run macOS and another drive to run Windows, or you could just partition just that one drive and you should be able to run macOS and Windows. Right click on the main partition of your drive. In this case, this is our C partition with 118 gig. Right click, and then you can see split right here. Now we can set how much we want to split. So you can see from here we can split up to 72 gig, but let's say we split 65 gig and then click on OK, and you can see 65 gig free space now here, which we can use to install macOS. And then let's rename it, so change the label to macOS. Okay, and then we can click on apply, and then we can click on apply. Yes. Now you can see I don't really have enough storage on my drive, so I can't do this. But in your case, you may be able to do this depending on how much storage you have available on your drive. You need around 65 gig to install macOS, so take note of that. Now we can close this. Yes. Head back to our download folder and copy OCC right here. Head to this PC and you should see the partition OCC which we created in our flash drive. Let's paste it there. Next, you can also see an EFI partition with EFI X, but we can't open this file on Windows by default. You can see we've been denied permission, and that is why we downloaded Explorer++. So let's open Explorer++, run Explorer++ application as administrator. So right click and run as admin. Now locate your EFI partition, which is EFI X in our case. So let's open, delete everything inside. Now go to your download folder and then copy the EFI we've been working on. Copy. And then go to our EFI X and then paste it there. Now let's close this. Close everything else. Restart our PC and begin the installation. Hold F9 or F12 to boot into your BIOS. It may be different depending on the PC and motherboard you're using. Now go to boot settings and disable fast boot. Also scroll down and disable secure boot. If you don't see an option to disable secure boot, then clear all secure boot keys under key management. Now go to advanced settings. Go to CPU configuration and then find Intel virtualization and make sure it is enabled. Intel virtualization technology. Now we can save changes and it should restart. Hold F8 to load boot options. From here we can select our flash drive, UEFI, SanDisk. Hit enter. And then we can proceed with installing macOS Sequoia. Now set a language for the installation and continue. First we're going to go to disk utility and continue. Now we're going to select our hard drive. In this case it is disk 1S3. Now we can click on erase up there. Rename it to whatever you want. I'm just going to call this macOS. Set the format to APFS. That is the format that macOS recognizes. Now we can erase. Click on done. Now let's head back. Click on install macOS Sequoia now and then continue. Continue. Now agree to the terms. Agree. Select the hard drive. In this case it is macOS 15, which we erased earlier, and then you can continue and it should begin the installation. Now it may restart severally while installing, but you just have to wait. This should take around an hour to install. And the installation is complete. Now you can continue. Set a language for the setup. Continue. You can set everything else based on your personal preference, so I'm just going to skip through it. This is Mac Pro 2019, and it is also showing the serial number we used right here, macOS 15.0. So basically this is how to run macOS on Windows PC. Now we have to do one last thing: move the EFI from our flash drive to our main drive. So to do that, we need Opencore Configurator, which is on our screen right here. You can see the partition OCC we created earlier. Now let's open the partition, and you can see occ.zip, which we copied earlier. Paste it on your desktop. Let's double click on it to extract, and then run Opencore Configurator. So you can see this is Opencore Configurator. Now click up here by the top right, and you should find both EFI partitions. The first one right here, you can see device name Cruiser Blade is the EFI partition on our flash drive, and the second one right here, you can see EFI on disk, which is disk 1S1, is the EFI on our main drive. So we're going to copy the EFI from our flash drive to our main drive. To do that, let's mount the partition on our flash drive. Enter your password to confirm. Mount on your main drive as well. We can close all these windows right here. Now let's open partition for our flash drive and open partition for our main drive. So partition on our flash drive, you can see boot and OC, and partition on our main drive, you can see Microsoft boot files. So what you're going to do is open the EFI partition on your main drive, and then copy the EFI from your flash drive, boot and OC. Copy both of them, and then just paste it here in your main drive. Replace. Now if you have just macOS, you should be able to boot. If you have both macOS and Windows, you should also get the option to select between both of them. So basically this is how to install the latest version of macOS Sequoia on your Windows PC with Opencore. In some cases, either Wi-Fi, Bluetooth or graphics may not work. I provided a guide to fixing Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, audio on laptops, and so much more. So make sure to check the description of this video to use those guides. Now you can eject your flash drive and then boot directly. If this video was helpful, kindly hit the subscribe button and turn on your post notification. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.